beauty of Airbnb is I'm not under any kind of long-term lease. I only have to commit to the period that I'm signed up for, and honestly not even that. But in theory, if I commit to 3 months, then I'm there for 3 months. If I commit to 1 month, to 6 months, however long I'm committing to that location, that's how long I'm committing to. And I don't have to worry about losing my deposit or losing fees very often, although there are exceptions to that rule with Airbnb, but generally speaking, I am safe to go, okay, I'm gonna stay in this location for 1 or 2 months and then decide whether I like that location. So that's number one. I'm not committed as long to a location. I can move relatively easily from one place to another. Location. I can scope out different areas. I can have a 1 month Airbnb here, a 1 month here, 1 month here, and get to know an area, like truly get to know an area. Is a relationship with the landlord. With Airbnb, you have a host. If you're in a new location, which you probably are if you're using Airbnb, you get to ask the host questions. You've now got this contact person that you can ask a plethora of questions to, and you can start developing this relationship. You can get to know if you like your landlord. I think it is paramount when you're overseas to like your landlord. If you don't like / love your landlord, it's probably one of the signs that you should start looking for another place to go to. When you get a lease, you're probably going to meet the landlord, but before signing the contract, you don't necessarily have a huge relationship. But with Airbnb, I'm able to ask all the questions that I need answered. Where to get water, where's the nearest grocery store, you can ask all those questions and you can see how they respond. You can also see within a month, something's gonna go wrong in your place. Something, it might be small, it might be major, I don't know. Something is gonna go wrong. And so you can again also see how your host / landlord reacts to problems in the actual apartment or house, what have you. This is pretty crucial when you are traveling overseas and you don't speak the language. You need somebody that can help you with the house, right? With all the things, the plumbing, the electrical. You need somebody who can give you connections, and your landlady and host will probably be the expert. They should definitely know the area where their Airbnb is located, and so they should know all the things. But if you've got a bad relationship with this person, right? If you've rented a place and it turns out that this person is not as communicative as maybe you would like. Mexico is, for me, very different from the US, although now that I've been here a year and a half, I feel like it's not as different as maybe it first appeared. But nevertheless, there was some intimidation, right? Some feeling of trepidation as I came to Mexico. So for my first Airbnb, I purposely chose renting a private room within somebody else's home. And while long-term, this will never work because I like my personal space, I like my independence, I loved that I got to meet the host, meet his entire family, right? And I got to observe him more than asking questions. Vice my having a problem and going, hey, how do I do this? I got to watch how he got water. I got to watch how he handled taking care of the pool. I got to watch how he treated his pet and where he took his pet to get groomed, etc. Like I got to observe these things and observe the pros and cons. So I feel like that first Airbnb really got rid of a lot of my questions, a lot of my concerns, because I got to see how it worked. I got to observe another family in their natural environment, if that makes sense, to pick up on lessons, vice constantly having to ask questions. So I am a fan of renting a space for at least a month before moving on to another location. 3 is your budget. Please make sure you read everything in the Airbnb page, because there are sometimes expectations that you're going to be paying an electric bill or some utility, so make sure you read the fine print. But one of the benefits of the Airbnb is usually it's an all-inclusive package. Usually it includes the internet, the electricity, the gas, it includes trash pickup. Like all the things are generally included with Airbnb, and it's something that you therefore don't have to worry about later. And I'm huge on budget. I'm huge on being able to predict month by month what my actual budget is going to be. And so with Airbnb, there's a lot of utility type bills that I just don't have to worry about because my host handles it for me. Yes, I might be paying a premium for it, keyword might, but honestly, well worth it in my opinion. On the subject of budget, something I have noticed during COVID is Mérida in particular. When I first got here, both of my Airbnbs, the taxes and Airbnb fees were minimal. They did not really affect it. So as I'm searching, if it said X dollars a month, I was probably paying only slightly more than that a month, once all the fees were added on. Now, I can tell you that Mérida in particular has definitely increased the taxes, which can raise that monthly cost $100 to $200 a month, which is a pretty significant deal. And I've been looking throughout various parts of Mexico, and the same seems to be happening in at least the major cities that I've been looking at, where, yeah, taxes and the Airbnb fees have definitely gone up. And so for new contracts, right, new Airbnb contracts, that is something to take into consideration for budget. But nevertheless, I still hold that the next place I go, it's gonna be through Airbnb. But again, when talking about budget, a normal lease in Mexico seems to have at least a 2-month deposit, if not a 4-month deposit, depending on how you're handling things. With Airbnb, I really don't have to worry about a deposit so much as I am paying my first payment, right? Usually whenever I book, and then the rest of them get scheduled out monthly if you are doing long-term, meaning multiple months of Airbnb time. So while savings is always a good idea to have, I don't have to give that savings to my landlord because I get to keep it for my actual emergencies. Most Airbnbs will be fully furnished, although I do find that within my price range, my Airbnbs tend to have a little less counter space. So I do tend to look at the stores nearby to see, are there places where I can buy at least some tables to increase my counter space, because I like to see it. I like to see it all. And then once again, related to that budget, generally the upkeep of the Airbnb is on the responsibility of the host. Although obviously if I break something, I fix it. And the longer you stay at the Airbnb, I do think there is an expectation that you kind of treat it like a lease, where if I have caused the majority of the wear and tear, I should be the one replacing it. So in terms of utilities, I have a gas tank that I absolutely pay to refill. We have hammock hooks that we have absolutely worn to the bone. And so when they broke, I did pay my landlady to replace them. So I don't want to say that there's no maintenance fees, but they tend to be relatively minimal depending on the wear and tear that you put on the Airbnb itself. And 2 benefits for renting at least a month, because Airbnb generally has a pretty good discount for people who rent on a monthly basis, as well as it really does take a month, in my opinion, to get used to a location. I feel like giving a location a full month allows you to really give the location a chance. Sometimes, especially when we're talking about going to a new country, going to a new region, you might have this expectation way up here, thinking that that's the norm, when you realize, okay, my expectations are actually inaccurate, and no matter where I go in this location, that is a really high expectation that's unlikely to be met. And so staying in a place, really getting to know a place for a month, tends to help out. Again, exceptions to every rule. So similar to breaking a lease, you can absolutely break your Airbnb lease if a month, in fact, turns out to be too long. But again, I tend to lean for a month for the discount, as well as getting to know an area. I will note that once I came to this particular Airbnb, I knew very quickly that I loved the host, I loved the location, and I loved this apartment. Things I don't like about my Airbnb are things like, I wish I had a yard. But on the other hand, I'm glad I don't have to take care of one. I wish I had a pool. But on the other hand, I'm glad I don't have to worry about somebody coming to maintain it all the time. So at the end of the day, I really kind of just love this place. I think I was less than a month in when I told my host here, hey, I kind of love it. When I'm done with Airbnb, can I just pay you cash? So I think of this place still as an Airbnb because I have the same benefits that I had when it was an Airbnb for the first 6 months of my stay here. But now, instead of paying through Airbnb, I'm absolutely paying her cash. And the huge benefit for both of us is, 1, I get to negotiate my terms, and 2, she doesn't have to worry about all the fees and overhead that Airbnb takes, which I don't actually know how much Airbnb takes away, but nevertheless, she doesn't have to worry about that. She can get the cash directly. And so again, when you find the Airbnb location that you are like in love with, don't be afraid to talk to the host and ask them if they can offer you some way of extending your stay while making it financially beneficial for the both of you. So yeah, if I'm in Mérida, this is where I'm at. So like I said, we've had 2 Airbnbs here in Mérida, Mexico. Do you like getting to know the host, Alex?
I don't really know the host that much.
You don't think you know the host that much? Okay, maybe kids never really know these details. Did you know the first host? Because we lived with him?
Kind of.
What did you know about him? That he had a pool and a dog?
Had black hair, I think.
Do you have a preference between this Airbnb and the first one?
This one!
Why this one?
Because it's better.
This is why you don't let your kid pick out your Airbnb, because they can't vocalize any of it. So I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you've ever rented an Airbnb and what your opinion is, whether you would get an Airbnb or want to relatively quickly get a lease if you come to a place like Mérida.
Pero eso no era así, pero eso no era por enamorarme. No lo quería hacer, Dios es santo.